What's up, guys? It's Matt. So since my last video with the equations, or that last little series I did there with the equations, I finished studying, and yesterday and today I finished up 3 exams. So yesterday was basic therapeutics and respiratory, or cardiopulmonary, I'm sorry, anatomy, physiology. The basic therapeutics is pretty easy again. I don't know, it's such an applied class that it just kind of comes naturally to me. I don't think it's necessarily that easy, I guess, for some people. But, yeah, I did well on that one, a 49 out of 50. And then he wound up throwing a question out. So I wound up getting a 50 out of 50, so I was pretty happy about that. And then cardiopulmonary A&P. So I wound up studying a little more for that one. I'm not as strong in A&P as I am basic. We covered 2 chapters. So if you're using the Desjardins, or my French is poor. If you're using that A&P book, we basically did both chapter 2 on ventilation and for pulmonary diffusion of gases. So we did both of those in one module, and all of that was on this test. Ventilation is a huge chapter. Diffusion of pulmonary gases wasn't this bad. That's where I actually wound up, I think, missing most of my points was in diffusion. I guess I just kind of slacked on it a little bit. I kept getting the concepts of pressure gradients and diffusion kind of makes up a very similar definition, but they're applied in different ways. So I know there was a couple on there. I wound up getting a 46 out of 50 on that exam. And he threw out one question, so I got a 47 out of 50. So that wound up getting me from a B to an A, so a 92 to 94%. So I was pretty happy about that. But it was a tough test. So the A&P test was definitely hard. Some people in the class really study. Like, everyone studies really hard. But that was a tough one. But it's over with, and now we're moving on to the cardiopulmonary significance of the circulatory system. So that's what we just started today. But overall, I was happy with that. I put in quite a bit of study time, I guess. I don't do note cards or anything like that. I just kind of repeat my notes, and then I take what I know and throw it out, and then just study really what I'm struggling with. And it seems to have been successful for me so far. And then the test I had today was actually, it's an intro to respiratory care class, so it has really 0 clinical application at this point, at least this first module, because it was literally like the history of medicine and anatomy and respiratory care. I mean, studying like 5000 BC all the way up to the 20th century, and significant figures. So there was like about 22 questions worth of, split up into various matching portions for major people in history who had some sort of a direct impact on either medicine or anatomy and physiology, or respiratory care directly. And he'd actually given us the list of people that he expected us to know ahead of time, so that definitely made that a little easier. I'll just sit in the car for a minute, guys, talk to you. Sorry, the creepy guy in the back there. No, it was people like Hippocrates and Leonardo da Vinci, all the way up, though, to your guys like Haldane and Clara Barton, Florence Nightingale, and Albert Andrews. Guys like that. And what their contributions were. And so that was, a little bit of memorization there. Not my strong point in that kind of like recall. But luckily, because instead of just having like one big question with 22 matching pieces, he actually had split it up. So, there was like 6 people with their contributions match. 6 people with their so the way he broke it down made it a little easier. The few people I wasn't sure about, I was able to kind of use the process of elimination to figure out. And then he picked probably 8 important organizations that he expected us to know. So obviously AARC, NBRC, and COARC, being our professional association, our credentialing for educational programs association or committee, and then the national board, which is obviously who credentials us for licensure. And then there was a few others that are big players: the Board of Medical Advisors, the National Association of Medical Directors on Respiratory Care, American Thoracic Society, stuff like that. And so, again, it was just kind of matching those organizations with what they did or who they were. We had like significant output of them. And then the last 25 questions were kind of a mix of just things like important things in the 20th century. So obviously he didn't care about people huffing volcanic fumes in 2000 BC. He wanted to know, the significance, what significant events took place in 1928. That was Emerson developed the iron lung due to the polio epidemic, and they did it with his team at Harvard. So stuff like that. The significance of the MA1 vent. It was the first vent to be able to deliver precise volumes with the use of bellows, developed in like 67 or something like that. So questions like that. It was, I wound up getting a 49 out of 50. There was some discrepancy on the one we missed due to the way he reviewed the question versus how he asked it on the test. I think it may have just been an issue of he implied one way or we inferred one way, basically, but there was a bit of a discrepancy there, so we'll see if he throws that question out or not. Still, I'm not upset. Obviously, with the 49 out of 50, that's pretty darn good. So, I guess then another thing that I want to talk about, because I've developed some notoriety in class. I take my exams very quickly. We're not doing any like simulation or critical thinking type questions yet. So I do my questions fast. I read them. The way I study allows me to like associate a lot of keywords. And because these are multiple choice exams laid out like they would be in the MBRC, some of them are situational, but if I see key data provided, and there's no calculation needed, I generally know what the answer is. And so for basic therapeutics and AAP, I have an average, we're given 60 minutes for 50 questions, and I have an average test taking time of like 12 minutes, and I'm finished. And then the test today, I guess someone else timed me, and I finished it in 6 minutes and got a 49 out of 50 on it. So the professor who instructs both basic therapeutics and A&P for us, he brought it up and because he's like, well, how do you study? Because, you seem to do well, and I work quickly. For anyone who's maybe curious, who may be struggling or looking to improve their grade, if they're working their butts off and they're still kind of getting by with poor grades, what am I doing that maybe they're not doing? And so, I guess just to share some of my strategies are, number one, there are some things I can't share. Knowledge I already have of medicine. My wife's a nurse. I've been with her since before she was in nursing school. I was with her all the way through nursing school, and now I've been with her as a working nurse for the last 4 years. One of the things that she used to do was read to me. So I joke. I like to joke, say, "Oh, I've been through nursing school." No, I haven't really. Those people work their butts off. But I got a lot of exposure to stuff in nursing school, so and it's very rudimentary. It's not like I have this expert knowledge and could go past nursing school right now or go past an NCLEX if I was allowed to sit. No, it's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just saying I recognize things that other people might not recognize in terms of applied knowledge to healthcare. So stuff like that, I can't pass that on. Like, that's just a lot of people may find that if you're exposed to something once, you don't get it. If you take time off and you're exposed to it again, sometimes it's like, oh, hey, you know what, I kind of remember this. It's kind of like that. I took economics once, I wound up getting a D, and I retook it again like a year later, and I wound up getting a B because I recognized and better understood. And it was the same instructor a year later I took it with. So for me, it's some of it maybe even is kind of like revisiting stuff. So it's already kind of clicking in my brain. But as far as like studying strategies, it's I take the guides that we follow. Basically, we have these PowerPoints, and he turns them into these guides, and there's blanks along the way. And so as I go through and fill in the blanks, or I highlight stuff that he specifically boxes on his PowerPoints in red, I know those are focal points. It's kind of when they say, okay, if a professor says something more than once in reference to the same type of topic, or if they regularly repeat something, it's probably something to remember, right? Why else would he keep saying it over and over and over? That's kind of how these guides go out. So when I see these blanks, it helps you focus your studying a little bit. And that's just, it's nice that our professor does it. That's why I know not everyone's lucky enough to have a professor who does that for them. Some of them are kind of old school and really want you to grind it out. And in that case, you go to the strategies like, okay, what is he saying over and over again? If your professor does a review, record the review. Don't sit there and try to write everything down. I mean, even if you don't record all the lectures, man, that recorder pays off if they do a review. Focusing your study, not wasting your time. I knew not to study anything about transmural pressure on this last exam, because the only two that he really talked about that we had these blanks on our guides on was transrespiratory and transpulmonary. All those other trans studies and ventilation, throw them out. I don't need to study them. Are they not important? No, I mean, they're important. But do I need to spend quality study time on them? No, because I knew I wasn't going to be tested on them. So that's one thing. Another thing, for me, I mean, once I figure out what I think he's going to test us on, I go through these guides and I write it all out. Then I repeat it. I write it out again and again and again. My wife did the same thing in nursing school. She didn't have these guides. I mean, nursing school for her was kind of old school. But she used to write out things that she had noted as important on her PowerPoints and just write it over and over and over and over again. Once you get to that point and your hand starts hurting, stop. You can only write it out so many times before you just kind of wear yourself out, and then just read it over. Read it out loud to yourself. That's a good strategy. Write it. I write them out usually 2 or 3 times, all of it. If it's 2 or 3 pages worth, so I'm writing 6 to 9 pages of stuff. After that, I start to read it. I take breaks when I study. I know, and I know these seem like common test-taking strategies, but take breaks. And I don't mean like, if I tell someone, hey, I studied all day Sunday for that test on Monday, I mean, how much time was I actually spent studying? 3 hours maybe? Like, it's break it up. I maybe write out notes for an hour and then stop and go do something else. Like, you gotta you decompress. You start stressing, I think, when you start like really like hammering into that stuff for hours and hours and hours, and then you gotta decompress a little bit. I don't really stay up late. I finally got a job. Unfortunately, that means I have to be up at 3 o'clock in the morning. So my first day was yesterday, the day of my 2 exams. So I knew what I had to do. I studied as much as I thought I needed to on Sunday, about, like I said, 3 or 4 hours total throughout the entire day. I stopped. Showered, went to bed at 9, got up at 3, went to work, got out at 6 because I was just kind of orientating. Went, dropped my son off, go down to school, got my material out. I was done writing. I wasn't going to rewrite anything else. I just started reading it over and over and over. Then working with some of the other people in my class. Hey, do you know what whatever is? Quiz them, have them ask you a few questions. You'll start to realize as you go reread, you'll start skipping over stuff you know. Okay, I know what the ideal alveolar gas equation is. I know how to use it. I know how to read it, and I know how to read a scenario and put the proper information in. I don't need to keep studying it. There's no other feasible scenario that he's likely to throw at me that's going to throw me off. I knew that already. So I didn't have to keep beating it into myself because it was just a waste of time. Skip it and let's study something else. And then finally, I guess this will be my last bit because this video is getting a little long. Test-taking strategies. There's not a whole lot out there right now for NBRC or respiratory therapy, I feel like. But you know what? There is a lot of NCLEX test-taking stuff. So yeah, we're not nurses. Yeah, the data that they're quizzing on is not pertinent. So it's not so much the testing yourself, with a daily NCLEX question. But there's guys and gals on Facebook who do rationales. So they ask a question that you may not know the answer. You're not a nurse. You're not going to nursing school. You're going to RT school. But so even if you don't know the answer, watch the end where they rationale the answer, because NCLEX does a lot of things just like the NBRC, multiple choice, or all 4 answers will be right, but which one's most right? And then watch the rationale. You really learn to stop, and when you do get a question on an exam that's like a scenario, first things first, before I even read this question, are there any question marks? Because that's gonna kind of let you know, okay, what are they asking? So as you read through it, what are they looking to know? Okay, I see numbers, I see values, I see FiO2, I see ratios, I see barometric pressures, I see partial pressures of oxygen, CO2, whatever the type of equation, doesn't matter. What are they asking? That's going to start to direct and dictate your thought process after that point. Okay, what numbers or data in this scenario now are distractors, and what's the information I need to answer this question? The whole thing's not a question. The whole thing might be a scenario with one question. What is the total flow? But they might have given you a paragraph worth of crap, basically. You got to decipher that. And I feel like that's one strategy that I've used to go through, because I see what the question is, I see what I'm given, and I know immediately what to apply. I don't dwell on things. I'm not into questions with critical thinking yet. I mean, it's first semester. There's nothing I'm going to stare at long enough, especially on a multiple choice question, that doesn't have calculations. It's you know it or you don't. Are there any keywords you've associated that lead you to one of these answers? Yes or no? Are there any answers that you know what they are versus what it's at? Maybe you don't know what that question's asking, but hey, well, I know C is this and this means that, and that's not what this is asking about. So you know that's not C. So now you've just increased your odds of guessing. An educational guess is what we would call that, right? Eliminating things. Multiple choice, when you're given us something and it's like, okay, 1 is this, 2 is this, 3 is this, or 4 is this. And is it 1 and 2 only, 1, 2, and 3 only, all the above, or 1 and 4 only? Well, a good strategy for that is look at the 4 options, not the answers, but the 4 options they're giving you to choose from, and treat it like a true-false. Blah, 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 blah. Is that true or false in relation to that? Oh, yeah, that's true. Okay, well, now you know the answer has to be including 1. Now, if they all have 1, okay, go to the next one. True or false? True or false? The last thing, I guess, to say on test taking strategies, and this is one that our instructor also beats into us, don't change your answers. What I mean is, if you were unsure, let's say you got this question down, you know it's either A or C. All right, you know what? I think I'm going to go with A. Bang, go. Unless you know without a doubt that the answer was supposed to be C, or you come across another question down the row that maybe answers that one, do not go back for any reason and change that answer, unless you know without doubt that, okay, no, it's supposed to be that. I wound up changing one answer on my last A&P test because I read the question, I clicked an answer, I clicked the next one, it hit me, I'm like, wait, what did that question say again? I reread the question. Oh, it's not that, it's this. I knew I had misread the question, and it just didn't feel right as I clicked on, and I went back, reread, oh, you know what it was? I knew 100% that I clicked the wrong answer and I clicked the right answer. I changed it. This wasn't like, oh, I don't know, now that I'm thinking about it, is it maybe this? No, maybe, no. Don't change it. Don't change it. I also don't review my test. So when I get to number 50, and all of our tests are on computers, so I know it's different if you're on paper, but I don't go and flip back to question 1 and let's click through them again. I don't need to make sure I answered them all. On D2L for testing, I click save for every question. I see they're all saved. I don't need to go back. You know, obviously a Scantron or something, you want to make sure you don't skip one because it screws up your answer key. But I do not go back and review question by question by question. I do not reread the questions again. Because last thing I want to do is come across something, put doubt in my mind, change an answer, and then screw up. Just something, and you know, I guess as our instructor, but it's something in your subconscious clicked. You had doubt about both. You went with one. Just go with it. If you get it wrong, so be it. Okay, that happened to me. I had reduced a question on one of my last tests to 2, and I really didn't know the answer to the question. I know it wasn't these 2 values. I know it was either this value or this value. I had a 50% shot. I rolled the dice. I picked one. I got it wrong. It's not the end of the world. I got a 46 out of 50. So, you know, if you have really bad test anxiety, it's just stuff like that. It's, if you have test anxiety, you're probably your biggest enemy, and that's hard. I take a deep breath. Don't second guess yourself. You know, you know how to best prepare yourself, and if how you're preparing yourself isn't good enough, man, talk to your instructor. Talk to your peers, you know, if you have peers who are doing better than you. Find out what they're doing, see if they're doing something differently than you. And talk to your instructors. Like, I can't imagine instructors want you to fail. You're right. CoArc, that's a monitored statistic of how many students pass the program, how many students pass the MBRC period, and then, you know, your low cut, your high cut, how many go on to pass the CLIN sims to get their RRT. Your instructors they want you to pass. They don't want you to fail. So talk to them. All right? Enough of my rant. I will get off my soapbox here and cut this video off now. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Like, subscribe, comment, guys. Let's talk. How's everybody doing in their classes so far? All right? Bye.